Ed Gein, the real-life inspiration for Leatherface and Buffalo Bill. Ed Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield, is one of the most notorious and gruesome criminals in American history. His horrific acts of murder, grave robbing, and creating macabre items from human remains shocked the world when they were discovered in the 1950s. Gein's crimes later inspired several infamous fictional characters, including Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs, and Norman Bates from Psycho. Early life of Ed Gein. Born in 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Edward Theodore Gein was raised in a deeply dysfunctional and abusive household. His father was an alcoholic, and his mother, Augusta Gein, was a religious fanatic who dominated and emotionally abused both Ed and his older brother, Henry. She instilled in her sons a fear of women and sexuality, often preaching that women, except for herself, were inherently sinful, and that the world was filled with immorality. Gein's father died in 1940, and his brother Henry died under mysterious circumstances in 1944 during a fire on their family farm. Many believe Gein may have been involved in Henry's death, as he had exhibited strange behavior when the body was found, but no charges were ever filed. After his brother's death, Gein was left alone with his mother, who continued to control every aspect of his life. When she passed away in 1945, Gein was devastated, losing the only person he had ever truly been close to. Following his mother's death, Gein became increasingly isolated and withdrawn. He remained on the family farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin, living a reclusive life. However, beneath the surface, his twisted and morbid fantasies began to manifest in horrifying ways. Grave robbing and necrophilia. After his mother's death, Ed Gein's fascination with death and the female body took on a darker turn. Between 1947 and 1952, Gein began visiting local graveyards, where he would dig up recently buried corpses, mostly of middle-aged women who resembled his deceased mother. His goal was to create a woman's suit that he could wear, allowing him to become his mother and preserve her presence in his life. Gein would exhume the bodies and take them back to his farmhouse, where he would use their skin and bones to craft macabre items. He skinned the corpses and used the flesh to fashion clothing, such as vests and masks. His home became a nightmarish workshop, filled with grotesque trophies made from human remains. These included 1. Human skin masks. Gein would tan and preserve the skin of his victims, fashioning it into masks that he would wear. 2. A belt made of human nipples. One of the most infamous items found in his home was a belt that he had created from the nipples of his victims. 3. Furniture made from human bones and skin. Gein made lampshades, chair coverings, and other household items using the flesh and bones of the bodies he exhumed. 4. A corset made from a female torso. Gein crafted a corset using the skin from the torso of a woman, which he would wear as part of his desire to become his mother. In addition to his ghastly crafting, Gein admitted to necrophilia, though he claimed that he never engaged in sexual intercourse with the bodies because they smelled too bad. The murders. While Gein was known to rob graves, his disturbing activities escalated to murder. On November 16, 1957, local hardware store owner Bernice Warden went missing. Her disappearance led police to investigate Gein, as he had been one of the last customers seen in her store the day before. When officers searched his farmhouse, they made one of the most horrifying discoveries in criminal history. Inside Gein's house, police found Warden's decapitated body hanging upside down in a shed. She had been shot with a rifle and then mutilated. Her body had been dressed like a deer, with her torso split open. Warden's head was later found inside the house, along with various other body parts and remains from Gein's grave robbing activities. During the investigation, Gein also confessed to the murder of another woman, Mary Hogan, a tavern owner who had disappeared in 1954. Her remains, like those of Warden, were found in Gein's house. Hogan's face had been flayed, and Gein had preserved it as part of his collection of human masks. Discovery and arrest. The gruesome discovery of Ed Gein's farmhouse shocked the small town of Plainfield and made headlines around the world. His house was filled with a nightmarish collection of human remains, all crafted into grotesque items. Police found skulls that had been turned into bowls, a lampshade made from human skin, and the severed faces of women that Gein would wear as masks. Gein was arrested and charged with the murders of Bernice Warden and Mary Hogan. However, due to his deteriorated mental state, he was declared insane and unfit to stand trial. He was sent to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, where he spent the rest of his life. Psychological profile and motives. Psychologists who studied Gein believed that his crimes were rooted in his abusive relationship with his mother and his inability to cope with her death. His desire to become his mother and his fascination with the female body were central to his motivations. Gein's psychosis, combined with his repressed sexual desires and his isolation, led to his horrific acts of grave robbing, necrophilia, and murder. Though Gein was only convicted of 2 murders, it's believed that he may have been responsible for other deaths, though no additional bodies were ever found. Cultural impact and legacy. Ed Gein's crimes had a profound impact on popular culture and the world of horror fiction. His grotesque acts of body mutilation and his use of human remains to create everyday items served as the inspiration for several iconic fictional characters, including 1. Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, who, like Gein, wears masks made from human skin, and engages in horrific acts of murder and mutilation. 2. Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs, who seeks to create a woman suit from the skin of his female victims, mirroring Gein's own desire to become his mother. 3. Norman Bates in Psycho, whose obsession with his domineering mother and his mental instability were heavily influenced by Gein's real-life psychological issues. The Butcher of Plainfield remains one of the most infamous figures in true crime history, and his story continues to haunt those who study the darkest corners of human behavior. Death and aftermath. Ed Gein spent the rest of his life in mental institutions, where he was reportedly a model patient. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and was considered a harmless, though deeply disturbed, individual. Gein died of cancer on July 26, 1984, at the age of 77, at the Mendota Mental Health Institute in Madison, Wisconsin. Though his physical presence is long gone, Ed Gein's horrific legacy lives on, both in the annals of true crime and in the countless fictional stories inspired by his gruesome acts. This true story of Ed Gein, the Butcher of Plainfield, is a deeply disturbing and macabre example of human depravity. His use of human remains to create everyday items and his grisly acts of murder and grave robbing have left a chilling legacy.